And for those who want to stick around, we're going to hear a little bit from our Democracy Action Team about things that you can actually do. And we heard at the top of the call about things that you can actually do from our Immigration Action Team. So really, this is about you having the opportunity to do the small part of the larger work that you can do, that you want to do, because the moment we're living in calls us to do the things that we can, and to understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's urgent, it's important, but we have to be engaging in the work with spiritual discipline and with a certain amount of joy in our hearts, because that historically is what has sustained the resistance movements that Zach described. Okay, with that, we're running a little behind, so I want to hand it over to the next group of principal speakers, and I believe that is going to go back to Pat and Ursula, and I guess I'll stick around to add things. Thank you so much. Pat, Ursula, take it away.
Thanks, Pablo. I am going to give you notice, Ursula, that I am just going to reduce mine to posts in the chat. I am not going to give the presentation I gave because we are quite a bit behind, and I know you have a lot of important actions. My piece is on a guide that UUSJ put together for democracy action teams, steps that you should be taking and can be taking. My group is taking all but 2 of them at the moment. So I'll put that in the chat so you can look at the guide yourself, and a reminder about the October 18 No Kings mobilization nationwide. Again, I will put a link in the chat so that you can sign up and get connected with the No Kings effort near you. All right, Ursula, it's you.
Yes, there are a number of things that you can do. And the first one I want to talk about is the action hour that we're doing tomorrow night. And this is an effort to, and I'm going to put the information in the chat. The SAVE Act is a bill that has passed the House and is now in the Senate, which is related to what he was talking about, which is saying you have to prove citizenship to vote. And it's another way of trying to limit who can vote and who is defined as a citizen. And we don't really have a problem of non-citizens not voting in the country. But this is a way of saying there is a problem and othering people and saying they're a problem. And we want to tell senators that this bill is not what we think should be around. It's we want to tell them to vote no. And the first thing we'll do is we'll call our own senators and we give you the ideas of what to say in the script and so forth, and give you a chance to do this, because once you get comfortable doing this kind of thing on this and other issues, you can begin voicing your thoughts and opinions to your elected officials, whether they're federal or state, local, or whatever. It's easy to do, and we want to make it easy, and we want to start having these democracy action hours monthly on different topics to give you a voice. The other thing you can do is go to UUSJ website, and there are a number of action alerts that Terry was talking about. And we have several. We have one on the SAVE Act and some others that are democracy related. So you have a chance to, again, send your voice to either your congressperson or to your senator. And one of the things we want to do is get people engaged in different kind of ways of engaging with their elected officials and having your voice speak up in this time. It's important for us to let them know. And little things that you do, like organizing at your own congregation or your friends, it really makes a difference. Small and large things that are happening are things that you should participate in. Back to Pablo.
Great. I mean, I just want to sort of nail this idea down because, you know, our democracy action team has done a lot of conversation and sharing of the theory around what's going on. This evening's presentation included, but really, it's important for everyone to understand that we've got a sort of limited window to be maximally effective in pushing back on this authoritarian drive and impulse. And that's not to say that the movement and the resistance won't go on afterwards, but our best chance, our best moment for intervention is during this roughly year and a half, right after the inauguration. And part of that process requires us to challenge what are referred to as the pillars of support for authoritarian regimes or the authoritarian. And members of Congress are one of those pillars. Okay. And so doing advocacy, showing up to rallies, these are all ways that we put pressure on that particular pillar of support for authoritarian behavior to try and destabilize that pillar of support. If we can remove the pillar of support, then the authoritarian has less political and institutional capital with which to engage in the authoritarianism. And right alongside that is the importance of developing capacity for community resilience and mutual aid, and really preparing to be able to offer our friends and neighbors help and support when the state is withdrawing support. And these are all things that houses of worship, faith communities historically have been expert in doing, right? And so we have an opportunity as UUs, as houses of worship, as faith members of the faith community, to really lean into one of our core capacities, that is to develop the spiritually disciplined engagement culture necessary to consistently challenge the authoritarianism that we are being asked to swallow and suffer without thinking very much. The rallies are important. They're an important gateway or on-ramp to being more actively engaged. But it's also true to recognize that the faith community writ large is also often a pillar of support for authoritarian behavior. So it's really essential that we, as a progressive, liberal faith tradition, are actively engaged in motivating our own pillar of support to be involved in defiance and resistance, and to decry what is being done. So if you're interested in those kinds of things, the action hour tomorrow night is important. Taking the quick actions, if that's all you have the time to do, are important. And paying attention to what we can do together as UUs. And I'll underscore it. It's not just Terry's offer. If you want to join advocacy with UUSJ, please fill out that form so that we can circle back to you. It's much easier and vitally important to approach offices with constituents. It's not the only way to approach it, right? It's not the only way to do the advocacy work. We're not saying that we have to have you, but we do know that the conversations are much more meaningful and impactful to the staff and the elected officials when you are participating consistently. And I was reminded of that just earlier today when I heard a readout about a conversation with Senator Collins's office, where the constituents were meeting with her staff, and the constituents were talking about some heart-wrenching consequences for what we're being asked to suffer in the United States, and the staffers got teary, and they pledged that they really would drive a conversation internally about what are we going to do to alleviate the circumstance of her constituents with regard to a variety of issues. It wasn't just immigration or democracy, but really it was sort of an economic justice conversation around how all these things are at play. So I want everyone who's a Unitarian Universalist and those of like mind and spirit to feel invited to get involved with UUSJ. And even if you don't want to get involved with UUSJ, please know that we need you now. Your nation needs you now to get involved.
So
I
are,
want-
are we going to do Q&A?
Yeah. Any Q&A, any questions as we approach the last 10 minutes or so?
Could I add something to what you just said?
Sure.
That Congress needs to know people agree with them. Members of Congress need to know we have their back. They're out there, they're standing out there. Some of them are speaking up, but they also need to know consistently how people in the country feel. And they do take note of calls and visits to Congress so that when people speak up, it really does have an impact in their ability to speak up for us.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for reminding me of that. And before we get to the Q&A, I'll just say this. We often think that our members of Congress are leaders, but if you look closely, the number of members of Congress who are champions on issues or leaders for Congress writ large or in the community or on the national stage, it's actually rather small. Most members of Congress reflect back at us what we are showing them. And so if we want them to be braver and bolder and more courageous and more creative in presenting policy solutions, then we have to constantly be in their face, insisting that they do it. It's not just a one and done thing. It's a constant drip, drip, drip engagement before they internalize that a new reality has emerged.
Could I
Question?
just add, because we have this question many times in the chat. Yes, you will be getting a recording and the deck slide will be sent to you. And I don't know, some form of chat, Pablo?
Yeah, I mean, raise your hand, please, if you have either a statement, something is lying heavy on your heart, try to be succinct, or a question for the Democracy Action Team, maybe even Terry, who's still on for the Immigration Action Team, but this. Jonah, or Jonna. Come off mute, please. We can't hear you if you're on mute.
Sorry, there, that's better. I'm trying to find ways to, to counter this narrative that Zach was talking about regarding immigrants. And I've got some very close immigrant friends, and their stories they're inspirational. They're heartwarming. They really make me feel like America, this is what America's promise is. And so I'm considering in our group, our UU, in our UU church, to put on a forum or meeting, presentation, inviting immigrants in the community. And we could start easily with a few that are in our congregation to talk about their stories. And I was wondering if the Democracy Action Committee has done anything similar, and if you could give me some tips on how to do it.
Well, I mean, I'm going to speak on behalf of both of our action teams that are represented or sponsoring this evening's thing. And I'll just say that the first and most important step is to look around your neighborhood and ask yourself, within reasonable driving distance or commuting distance, what are the community-based organizations that are already connected with those communities, that are already doing the work, and invite them into a relationship and ask them, given the conditions on the ground locally for you and your congregation, what is the best way to lift up the stories that are going on in the community? Don't presume that you have the answers. Don't presume that you have the best speakers. Don't presume that you and your congregation will have the best approach to this. Consult, ask many questions from a position of earnest curiosity, and arrive at an event that can be supported by your potential local partners. I say that because, first of all, there are Unitarian Universalists who are immigrants or migrants or married to them or, related to them. But as a whole, we as a denomination are not predominantly immigrant. And so those personal lived experiences are not always our own to claim. That's the first thing. But not more importantly, but just as importantly, as Unitarian Universalists, we take the project of being in covenant and relationship and in right relationship with impacted folks as a serious element of our theology and our faith practice. And it has the additional benefit of helping you to develop the relationships and to do the power building that our Democracy Action Team has been suggesting and trying to coach congregations towards for over a year and a half now. So there are many, many good reasons not to go it alone, but actually to try and go in community. That would be my number one most important suggestion.
Okay, thank you. I agree. We have a number of groups that we coordinate with already, and you're right. The more we have, the more critical mass we bring to it, the better I think it'll be.
I just wanted to quickly reinforce that I think you're absolutely on the right track to think about storytelling. There's been a lot of social science research that talks about the importance of telling stories, not just speaking in terms of policy, as you are inclined to do, but to tell real people stories. And in congressional meetings, it often makes a real difference if you have a migrant or refugee there who can explain their situation. So you're absolutely on the right track, and reinforce what Pablo said about working with your local groups to make sure that you're in touch with their needs and resources too.
Okay, great, thanks. Appreciate it. A very, very good presentation tonight.
Yeah, well, our volunteers at UUSJ put a lot of time and energy and sweat into the contents that we provide. So please, let's thank them for putting in the elbow grease. Kat.
I do also want to thank all of you. This has been so good.